minutes 44 seconds. Columbia now maneuvering Ohms 1 burn attitude using the two 6,000-pound thrust engines. Ohms 1 will be posi grade, moving Columbia forward and higher on her flight path, placing Columbia in orbit.
When they talk about those Ohms burns, those are the engine burns necessary to put the spacecraft into orbit.
This burn will put us in a 60 by 120 nautical mile orbit.
We'll have to supervise that with another burn about 45 minutes.
Okay, and we got free on loop. I believe it's about 10, but we'll catch it in a minute as soon as we get the Ohms burn off.
Roger, and the VAP is shut down. We'll need it cycled off and then back to the primary on.
The picture you see is of Mission Control in Houston. The spacecraft well out of sight now.
Okay, we got a good Ohms ignition.
Headed for orbit, but not yet into orbit.
They got the Ohms ignition.
Roger.
Ignition of the first engine necessary to burn in order to put the spacecraft into orbit. That's a critical test beyond us now. You may have heard some reference there to Capcom. That's astronaut Dan Brandenstein, the Capcom or capsule communicator, who talks directly to the crew.
Seconds from LOS. Both Ohms engines look good going over the hill. Configure LOS. We'll see you at Madrid.
Okay, Dan, we'll see you there. Burn looks good and steady.
A reference to the fact that the next communication point is in Spain.
Roger, thank you.
What you're seeing is animation of roughly where the spacecraft is and what the astronauts themselves are into at this moment. The only thing we heard out of the crew is this is really smooth.
Dan, I think I did hear him call out a couple master alarms. They were getting some IMU bites,
which means
and the IMU was temporarily dropping out, causing an in-flight. It's a built-in test equipment. It's what it does. And they also seem to be having some problem with one of the evaporators. But we'll have to wait and see after they sort this out.
But none of that sounds like serious trouble to you, Leo Croft?
No, it's not serious, but they did have some master alarms on the launch. I heard them call one out.
Let's listen to Mission Control for just a moment.
10, 9, we have go for main engine start.
We have to start the main engines now at any moment. They're going for main engine start.
This is a
ignition. We have ignition of the solid rocket boosters and liftoff. Liftoff of America's space shuttle, and the space shuttle has cleared the tower.
What that is, this is a replay of the launch itself. Both of the auxiliary engines that are necessary for orbit, one of them has already started burning. What you are seeing here, NASA is replaying and hearing the launch itself. And that's what confused everybody, myself included, myself especially.
Neil Hutchinson, you're going to go at 40 seconds.
I think it's important to note that the IMU bite tests also include internal temperature tests and et cetera. And Neil Hutchinson said to disregard, it could be just a very
Well, for just one moment there when they said main engine start, I thought they meant, well, the main of those auxiliary engines. But now, where we are right now, this is a replay. NASA's seeing a videotape replay of the launch itself, which is a beautiful thing of wonder. But where the astronauts are at this moment, they're headed for orbit, but they're not yet into orbit.
They're in orbit now. They're in a 60 by 120 nautical mile orbit.
All right, they're in a 60 by 120 nautical mile orbit. They've just reached orbit. Let's take our model of the orbiter itself. They are at the moment flying, if you will, upside down or right side up, Leo.
Upside down and forward.
Upside down and forward.
Nose pointing to the
pointing
direction
in this direction. And they're now in their first orbit. If they have an emergency and have to land, their next available place to land is in Spain.
No, they can no longer make Spain. They're committed to orbit now. That's right. They're in orbit, and they could come down in Edwards or any one of the contingency landing sites.
They could pick their landing site now if they had trouble. There's no indication of any trouble anywhere. And in case you have joined us late and missed the launch itself, we will, of course, be re-showing the launch as the morning goes along. The astronauts, every indication is that while they have a few minor problems in the cockpit, some indication that this or that backup system may not be working perfectly, everything has gone picture perfect this morning in terms of the launch. Don't forget what's been accomplished here. That after last week's scrub and a 2-day delay, that turned into a much longer delay. The launch this morning was successful. The astronauts are now in orbit. They're making their first orbit of the Earth. Let us hope that the whole trip turns out to be as picture-perfect as the first space shuttle back in the spring. Our CBS News coverage of the Space Shuttle Columbia will continue in a moment.